From TikTok royalty to Scottish custody, the unbelievable tale of the Kubala tribe. It began like something out of a fantasy film, deep in the quiet woodlands of Jedburgh, Scotland. Among the tall pine trees, locals spotted strange tents draped in black and gold. A handmade throne stood in the clearing, and a small group of people declared that this land now belonged to their kingdom. They called it the Kingdom of Kubala, a new African monarchy founded right there in the Scottish forest. As its head was a man named Kofi Ofe, a Ghanaian national who called himself King Atehene. By his side stood Jean Gasho, a Zimbabwean-born woman who styled herself Queen Nandi, and with them was a young woman from Texas, Cora Taylor, who said she was the Queen's handmaiden. To outsiders, it seemed like a bizarre social experiment or maybe an internet prank. But for the three people living in those woods, it was serious. They weren't playing. They truly believed they were royalty reclaiming what they called ancestral land stolen 400 years ago. When they arrived, they set up camp and hoisted a flag marked with gold symbols. They live-streamed almost everything. "We do not recognize your laws," the self-declared king said in one of his TikTok broadcasts. "This land belongs to the tribe of Kubala." The couple claimed they were fulfilling a divine prophecy, that they had been guided to Scotland to restore the spiritual balance of Africa and Britain. They said the forest was their ancestral inheritance, and no government had the right to remove them. At first, people in Jedburgh didn't know what to make of it. But as weeks passed, local authorities grew concerned. The couple was trespassing on council land. Social workers began checking reports that a young woman was living in the woods under their control. And then came the morning. Everything changed. Before sunrise, police and immigration officers surrounded the makeshift camp, with cameras rolling and drones buzzing overhead. They moved in to dismantle the forest kingdom. In a chaotic scene live-streamed on TikTok, officers detained the so-called king and handmaiden while the queen filmed, shouting prophecies of divine judgment. Within hours, their tents were cleared, the flags were taken down, and the Kingdom of Kubala, as they called it, was gone. But what might have ended as a simple eviction turned into an international sensation. Who were these people? How did an African royal family end up claiming land in Scotland? And what was really going on behind the scenes? As journalists dug deeper, the story took a darker turn. The young American handmaiden Cora Taylor was just 21 years old. Back in Texas, her mother was watching news in disbelief. She told Sky News that her daughter had been brainwashed, lured into a dangerous spiritual group that had stolen her sense of self. They groomed her, her mother said. She left home for what she thought was a divine calling and ended up living in a tent in a Scottish forest. Scottish welfare authorities began investigating. They arranged psychological assessments and interviews to make sure Taylor wasn't being exploited. But Cora herself told reporters that she was not a victim. She said she was where she wanted to be. "I am not brainwashed," she insisted. "I am here by choice." Still, many questioned whether she could truly be free under such influence. Meanwhile, the so-called king, Kofi Ofe, remained in custody under immigration law. Officials were investigating his visa status, but more disturbing reports started to surface. According to the Scottish Sun, Ofe had a history of domestic violence. In one leaked video, his partner Queen Nandi, or Jean Gasho, confronts him, crying and saying that he beat her and nearly killed her. Ofe is seen dismissing the accusations, telling a child that a wife must forgive her husband. Many who watched the footage saw it as manipulation, a chilling look into a relationship defined by control and fear. Gasho later claimed he often pretended to be mentally unstable to escape blame. The tension between them was raw and visible, both in private videos and their online posts. Police had reportedly been called to their home before, and child protection services had been alerted. Yet, even amid the chaos, Jean Gasho held firmly to her belief in her divine role. Years earlier, she had been a popular Christian blogger. Over time, she shifted toward African spirituality, claiming she received prophetic visions. Eventually, she began calling herself a queen chosen by God. Her followers grew, and so did her conviction that she was meant to lead a spiritual revolution from Scotland. On social media, she wore crowns and royal robes, mixing African chants with biblical verses. Some saw her as a woman reclaiming her cultural identity. Others saw her as delusional, perhaps even dangerous. Still, to her, the Kingdom of Kubala was real, a mission to restore Africa's honor and defy the colonial system she believed still ruled the world. Authorities, however, saw something entirely different: a small unlawful encampment, a possible case of coercive control, and a vulnerable young woman caught in the middle. In the end, the self-declared kingdom fell apart as quickly as it had appeared. The camp was dismantled, the royals were separated, and social workers stepped in. The king remained detained, while the queen and her handmaiden were moved into temporary housing. But even as they left the forest, the legend of the Kingdom of Kubala kept spreading online. Thousands of views, comments, and debates. Some called it a tragic story of faith gone too far. Others said it was a symptom of the social media age, where anyone can declare themselves royalty, prophet, or savior with the right followers and hashtags. And maybe both were true. Because in a way, the Kingdom of Kubala wasn't just about land. It was about power. The power of belief, the power of control, and the power of the internet to turn illusion into reality. What started as a strange dream in the Scottish woods became a cautionary tale about the human need to belong, to believe, and to be seen. It asked uncomfortable questions. When does faith cross the line into delusion? When does freedom become captivity? Today, the forest where Kubala once stood is quiet again. The trees have reclaimed their space, but the story lingers, whispered in online threads, debated in talk shows, retold in videos like this one. Because somewhere between faith and madness, between truth and performance, a self-declared king and queen built a kingdom that captured the world's imagination and vanished just as suddenly as it appeared.